Bom dia, everybody. Welcome to Tudo Tuga, the Everything Portuguese Soccer Podcast. I'm Mitch Freud.
Christian Ferrer.
What's going on, guys? It's been a couple weeks since we've done this. We've been a little bit busy, but there's been a lot happening in the world of Bala.
And look at our fucking merch. Look at this.
Look at that.
Thank you, Sonia, for hooking us up with this vinyl. We're looking fresh now, man.
We got swag,
We
man.
got swag.
Look at that.
Even Cidadão got one.
Even Cidadão? Next time I want a boina.
Okay.
See if you can do a logoed boina for me.
100%, buddy.
Okay, let's see what we can do with that. All right, guys, we've got a lot to cover today, and you know what? It says a lot for mine and Christian's commitment because we are missing some primetime Bala right now to bring you guys this podcast.
Well, he is. And prime time is a little bit...
We got Benfica Boavista playing in the background. What's going on right now? So we'll keep you guys updated with live updates for that. We'll talk a little bit about the lineups.
If you see us staring at the middle of the table, it's because the game's playing right there.
Playing, yeah.
Don't mind us.
We'll keep you guys posted with what's going on
We
in
did
the
not
game.
smoke up before the podcast.
So we'll follow the same format as we usually do. Bring you guys os capas do dia. We're going to jump into two topics covering the Champions League and Europa draws for all the Portuguese teams, looking at where we stand. We're also going to cover a little bit about the current coefficient review kind of for the clubs and the countries, how the points are calculated, and kind of where Portugal stands in terms of the points and how that all works going forward. So we're going to cover a little bit about that. We're all obviously going to jump into a little bit about the Ronaldo saga. We have to talk about that. Where is he going? Where does it stand right now? Everything going on with him at United, and potentially where his future will be. And then talk a little bit about Mateus Nunes to Wolves, which we didn't catch last week. And then we'll jump into our Tuga Stars and finish off with Liga fixtures. So we'll jump right into it, guys, with As Capas do Dia with a Bola. Let's see what is happening in today's front page. So the new signing, Norwegian Arsenal, set to start for Benfica. He actually didn't start, but he is on the bench. Enzo and Florentino still getting the start in the midfield.
You're going to call him Ars for short?
Ars.
Yeah.
Ars. Grande Arsnaj. Yeah. Anyway, he is on the bench against Boavista today. We'll keep you guys posted if he ends up getting some action. The Benfica Feminina League, the women beat Sporting 4-1 in your hometown, Christian.
You guys are getting desperate, man. You guys are going to the women's soccer to start.
Listen, dude.
Start beating us.
Listen,
okay,
dude,
man.
These girls can ball, man.
We never brought up women's soccer before, but now the last 3 years.
That's it, buddy. It's it.
Okay, man. We'll slip it in.
So they took home the Supertaça. So I'll talking about that. And then Saint Just apparently is going to be in the 11 against Chaves this weekend. And Slim Money on the attack against Ruben Amorim, coming out talking a lot of shit, man.
Nice, proving Amorim right, man. Sometimes the best thing, what's the saying, Adam? Sometimes the best things to do is to be quiet. And I think in Slimani's, Slimani's point,
taken that advice,
whatever, man. Just take some advice from Ronaldo, right? Look at this.
Interesting.
Those who don't know, that's what Ronaldo tweeted today. So, but I agree with it.
We'll cover a little bit more about that later.
Sorry,
Record. Let's jump over to Record and see what they've got covering. Yaremchuk à venda. Apparently now with the news that Gonçalo Ramos will be staying at Benfica. I really hope that is true. They're talking about selling Yaremchuk for 20 million euros. That is what they want for him. We'll see if that ends up happening. Alexandropoulos for 5 years to Sporting at about 4.5 million euros from Panathinaikos.
Yes.
Is that going to be Mateus Nunes' replacement there, Christian? Or
Man,
what do you think?
You can pull up a highlight reel of my YouTube videos to make one make it look good. We won't know until we see him, right? He looks good from what I understand. He's been starting. Actually, my buddy Kevin told me this. Buddy Kevin Gerald, shout out to Kevin Gerald. Told me that he's been a starter for Panathinaikos. Butchered the name. What's these difficult names, man? Making our job hard here. Since he was 16 years old, so the last 4 years. He looks good, man. He looks like a player like Mateus Nunes. Obviously, he won't be at the same quality, but he can transport the ball up and down. He can play a 6. He can play an 8. We'll see what he does, man.
Interesting stuff, man. The other thing that was interesting about that deal was Panathinaikos still keeps 30% of his pass.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
it's quite high, no?
It is, but unfortunately, this is the freaking deals that Varandas likes to make. All of our players, they're either on 50%, 40%, 60%.
There was rumors about Sporting going after Miguel Campos from Fenerbahce. He's a good little Portuguese midfielder.
Yeah. I dived into that. I follow another big Portuguese podcast, Sporting Portuguese podcast, and he has some intel on what goes on behind the scenes, and it's pretty obvious. I don't think I needed to hear from this guy to know that he was a little bit too pricey. They were asking for $20 million.
Yeah,
and I think that's a little hefty for what you're getting.
They need to save up their pennies for Ronaldo.
But man, just the thing is though, like they're making some fucking crazy money, man. I don't know why they're acting like they're hurting. Like I just seen a thing today that obviously not in the last 10 years, but the last 2 or 3 years, we made the most up there with the most money in Portugal. Like we have over $100 million coming in. So,
man, you guys are saving up your pennies.
Oh, Jesus, cheap it is, man.
Faz ver. All right, jumping over to O Jogo, the last of the 3 big newspapers in Portugal. They are maybe a little desperate for news, but front page on here is an interview that they did with Derlei, the ex-Porto Brazilian striker. Saying that Sérgio Conceição demands more than Mourinho.
Relax.
Which is, well, you never know. I don't know. Does he?
Well, he likes to yell and spit at everybody. Maybe that's what you mean.
And that Sergio also has a lot to do with the evolution of Pepe at Porto, who is really coming into his own, man. That kid is going to be a star. He's not going to be in Porto for very long.
Yeah.
Already last year he looked good, and this year he's really coming into his own.
One thing I noticed about Porto, which I think it's a really good thing, you don't just step into a Porto lineup. I think Sporting fell victim to that a few times. Right when you buy a big transfer, they enter the lineup. Like look at Carmo, for example. Carmo, they paid, I believe, don't correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe it was upwards of $20 million for him, and he still hasn't played a game yet. Because in a way, you got to integrate into the team. Take some time, like even Pepe, the first season they bought him, there was his big money move, and he didn't play most of the season.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then to kind of round it out, they've got António Salvador, the president of Braga, talking about how Portugal is falling in the UEFA ranking with no Portuguese clubs this year in the Europa Conference League. We're going to kind of bring up a little bit about how Gil Vicente lost to AZ Alkmaar. Not just lost, they really got fucking spanked. It was kind of sad to see. But we'll talk a little bit and jump into the current coefficient and how all the points are going to be calculated this year and how that is important for our football going forward.
And we'll touch more on this later, but this just goes back to what we said podcasts in the past, where we got to strengthen up our league, man. Where the top 3, maybe now 4, they're taking all the money, man, like all the TV rights, everything. It's pretty hard for these smaller teams in Portugal to compete in Europe.
No doubt. All right, guys, jumping right into our top story, into the topics. The Champions League draw happened this week. We got to see group all of the 3 main Portuguese clubs, Benfica, Sporting, and Porto, into the draw. Benfica obviously getting in there by beating Dinamo Kiev 3-0 the week prior. Otamendi, Rafa, and David Neres getting on the score sheet for Benfica. 5-0 total aggregate victory over Dinamo. So handily victorious over the Ukrainians. So we luckily had all three of the big Portuguese teams in the big dance this year. So Portugal had Porto, Sporting, and Benfica. Porto getting drawn first into Group B. If you want to pull up the Group B, if we can see that there. My eyes are really bad. There we go. So you got Porto, Athletic Madrid, Bayern Leverkusen, and Club Brugge. Is it? No, Copenhagen, right?
No, it's Club Brugge.
Is it Club Brugge or
Yeah.
Copenhagen? My fucking eyes.
Club Brugge. Club Brugge.
Jesus. So that is Porto's group. Sporting drawn into Group D, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yeah.
I can't read that right. Can you
Need to
make
get
it
your
any
eyes
bigger,
checked.
I gave you a
So it's
I give you a
Frankfurt,
picture
Tottenham,
of
and
all
Marseille.
the Portuguese teams. Just go up right there. Faz de grupos. Show that one. There you go.
Sorry,
All right,
his
so-
eyes. He's getting a little older now.
I forgot
You know
my
what
I forgot my glasses today, guys. Sorry. All right, so we got Frankfurt in Sporting's group. It's Frankfurt, Eintracht Frankfurt. Let's see the ones there. It's covered up.
So
Who's the groups in there, Christian?
so Frankfurt, Tottenham, and Marseille.
And Marseille. There you go. There we go. Frankfurt, Tottenham, and Marseille. And in Benfica's group H, to me, one of the group of deaths for sure. PSG, Juve, and Maccabi Haifa.
Who?
Maccabi Haifa, the Israeli guy club. So that's your groups for the three Portuguese teams. Braga then got drawn into their group. Group D, Braga, Malmo, Union Berlin, and Union Saint Gilo. No sé. But definitely a winnable group for Braga. So,
All day.
what are your thoughts, Christian, on the three groups for the Portuguese teams?
So this is the thing. People might say this, like the names that pop out, obviously Juve and PSG's Benfica's group. Because rightfully so, Juventus has a historic name, Ronaldo's former team. But in my opinion, Juventus is not as strong as they used to be. Even if you look at last season, don't quote me on this. I know they didn't finish. Well, they probably finished top four. I think they got fourth, third. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is they're not the Juventus of old. It's definitely a beatable team. PSG, I mean, you might just have to hold on and survive with that team, man. And then the last team, definitely winnable. So at least to qualify for UEFA and the next round, there's a big chance. In my opinion, out of the three Portuguese teams, believe it or not, I think Porto got the easiest group. Atletico is a great team. They're not as good as they were before. They actually match up well with them. They got them last year. They tied them away. And then we all see what happened at home in Portugal with Porto. The other two teams, very winnable. So I think Porto can go through. The thing with Sporting, there's no names that pop out. There's no like superstars teams, but it's a very balanced group. So you can either finish first or you can finish last with Sporting. We don't know what's going to happen. So they're all, in my opinion, they're all like pretty equal. And ironically, a fun stat that I've seen that they all play three at the back. So it's going to be a cool matchup to see. And they're also another thing I was looking into. Their crowds, they're not easy to play in. Playing in Marseille, you know the history of Marseille. It gets wild there.
Yeah.
Tottenham, Premier League team. And then Frankfurt, you seen last time what happened when I think it was in Portugal or anyways, one of their away games, they destroyed the city. They brought so many freaking fans.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard environments to play in.
I honestly feel like Sporting actually got the hardest group.
Yeah, I think so too.
Teams.
I think so too. Just because like looking
there's
at
there's no locks there.
There's no locks. And
Sporting is not a favorite in any three of those games.
None of those. Yeah, for sure. And like at least with like Benfica's group, you guys can at least go to UEFA. Yeah. I think if you guys lose to that Israeli team, you got third place. That's I don't see that happening. So for us, we might not even make Europa League. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen. So But in the end, you know what? That being said, for the main 3 Portuguese teams in Portugal, they're all winnable groups. I think all of us can get through. If you look at these groups, don't get me wrong, it's Champions League. There's no easy games, but man, we can easily, all 3 Portuguese teams can go through, in my opinion.
It's going to be tough for sure. This is going to test us. And this kind of goes towards what we were talking about earlier. And we're going to jump into the coefficient. But, if the Portuguese teams want to continue to mount a serious challenge in Europe, we need to try everything to maintain some of the talent in our league, man. And as much as, we'd like to see, these young players, young Portuguese players go outside of Portugal and, grow and become successful outside. It hurts Portuguese football as a whole when this talent is constantly being sucked out of our league. And it's going to make it harder and harder. For us to compete in Europe. We're going to show where Portugal stands right now in the rankings, but it's going to be harder and harder for us to compete in Europe if we continue to just let the talent get sucked out of Portugal.
It's sad because it's been going on for years and years and years. And if you even look at the list of players that come out of Portugal, they're amazing players. If you were like you hit the nail right on the head, man. If you were to keep some of these players, man, and go further in Champions League or in Europe, which is better us as a whole. But I mean, it's easy to say from the outside. These teams have to run big clubs, even little things that people don't think about, like flying everywhere, food every day, running the club, paying salaries. That shit gets expensive. But sadly, yeah, like you said, all these players leave, and in the whole, we can't really compete in Europe. We can just pretty much hold on and survive and see how far we can go.
Yeah.
I think the years of Porto winning in 2004 I don't think we'll ever see that again.
Come on, man! Don't be so pessimistic. Okay, man. Let's have a look at these standings right now and see exactly where Portugal sits. The most recent standings came out, and Portugal is currently sitting 6th in the rankings, just behind France in 5th, Netherlands in 7th, Austria in 8th, and I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, Scotland is sitting in 9th. So that's kind of where we stand. So right now, based on these standings, we have 6 clubs that can qualify for European football at the end of the year. So we'll kind of see what that looks like as we kind of go forward. But
you won't hear me saying this often. Thanks to Benfica for making the Champions League, because we were behind the Dutch last week.
Yeah,
they passed us.
Yeah,
so they made points and.
So it's huge, man. This is huge. And we'll kind of explain to you guys how these points are calculated. So if we want to jump into the coefficient points. So points are awarded as follows. So 2 points are awarded for all wins from any group stage of either the Champions League, Europa League, or Europa Conference League. Okay. 1 point for all wins in qualifying and playoff matches in the Champions League, Europa League, or Conference League. 1 point for any draw from the group stage in any of those 3 competitions. 0.5 point for draws in qualifying and playoff matches in those competitions. 4 points for group stage bonus participation in the Champions League. 4 points for round of 16 bonus participation in the Champions League. 4 points if you are a group winner in the Europa League. 2 points for runner-up in Europa League. 2 points for group winners in the UEFA. What's it called again?
Which one?
The
Conference League?
Conference League. Is
it
Conference League?
Yeah.
Conference League.
Conference League.
Conference League. And runners-up. 2 points for runners-up in the Conference League. 1 point for group runners-up in the Conference League. 1 point each round clubs from each round of 16 in Champions League or Europa League. And 1 point for each round of clubs that reach the semifinals of the Conference League as well. So that is a breakdown if you guys are curious as to how these points are calculated. Okay. So when we talk about how important it is for all Portuguese teams to have a decent presence, this is how it kind of affects on a year-to-year basis how many teams will qualify directly into the Champions League, how many teams will go into Europa League, and how many overall teams can actually go to Europe.
So I talked to you a little bit off air about this. I don't agree with it, but for those of you that don't know, you get the same amount of points winning in the Conference League as you do in the Champions League, which I don't fully agree with because the Champions League is such high level. So if like teams like Sporting Porto and Benfica, getting out of the group, it's so much hard. If those same teams were in the Conference League or UEFA, it's a little bit easier.
I think what the logic behind that is typically you're going to get, weaker teams that are in the Conference League, basically competing. And I think UEFA wants to try to give some potentially, lower ranked countries like an Austria or a Scotland a better chance at kind of bumping up in the rankings. The problem is you can have a team like Manchester United in the Conference League. They're not, but I'm just giving you an example. If Man United shits the bed again, they could go to the Conference League. Oh, Man United all day. Any team from the Premier League in the Conference League is likely going to be mopping it up, right? Yeah. So to your point, yeah, you get like England really doesn't need any more points. Like, they already have such a massive presence in all three competitions.
I agree with the pointing system, but my point is I don't think you should get 2 points for winning a game in the Conference League and 2 points for winning a game in the Champions League. I think if you're a Champions League
I agree with that.
You agree with 2 points each?
No. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I agree.
Because winning in the Champions League, that shows the caliber.
Yeah, no, what I was saying is the issue is you have potentially teams who already have such a massive presence in all three European competitions that end up going to the Conference League. And like I said, a team like Man United can be in the Conference League, and any team from the EPL is going to be wiping the floor with everyone in the Conference League. So it's going to just add to potentially unfairly to the points. Because if, let's say, to your point, if Man United is in the Conference League and they're winning, and Benfica is in the Champions League and they're winning, Benfica is racking up the same amount of points in a much more difficult competition as Man United in a much,
100%. But that just goes, now this emphasizes more that we need to strengthen our league. Yeah. There's such a huge gap between the top three and the rest of the league. Even top four now, Braga is looking really good this year. That, these other teams, they can't do anything in Europe, and then it just hurts us more. Yeah. And you know what? That we talked about this a long time ago, even last year, that we need to strengthen our league as a whole. Mm-hmm. There was like with TV rights, that's what the Premier League does so well. They have the best TV rights available, and they pass that on and distribute it really evenly. And that's why teams like Fulham can drop 30 million on players, and Wolves could drop $45 million on players. They don't win. They're not in the Champions League every year. They're not even in the Conference League most times. But distributing that wealth through the league is going to strengthen our league as a whole and better the top teams in the league because we have more competitive games. The reason why the Premier League's their teams are so good is because every week is super high and competitive, high level soccer. And if we're playing Rocas and Tondelas every week, you still got to win those games, but that level, that attack, that where it pushes teams to be better, we don't have that. And I think by strengthening our league, it's just going to better us as a whole. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to what the strategy is in order to try to strengthen our league. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to money, man. These smaller clubs just don't have the budgets to either continue to pay really promising young players in order to keep them, or go out and buy players that are good enough to really compete at a higher level. So it really comes down to money.
I agree. I don't think Portugal and their league does enough to promote our league. Like we have on DAZN, I don't know about this year, but last year they had the Belgian league on DAZN. Mm-hmm. Like do little things like that. Put it on DAZN. Even if you take a little bit less, if it's more expensive to run there, you don't get as much margins back. You're advertising your league more. Things like Fubo TV. Do things to advertise our league more. If we did things like that, people would want to watch more. which brings in more money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not right away will you'll make money, but in the long haul, it's like an investment over 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
Our league will grow, eventually make more money, and go from there. Pretty much what the Premier League did.
I think we also need to do a better job, even with the main three, and Braga included in this. I think we need to do a better job of holding on to our superstars.
100%.
I talked to you about this. I don't know if this would hold any weight. It could be a ridiculous idea, but I think there should be a certain type of contract. And nowadays in football, you can put all types of different contracts. We've seen crazy things being put together over the last few years. But what my idea is, let's say you've got a promising young player and you put a contract in front of him that says, you know what, for the next 5 years, let's say he's 17, 18 years old. So for the next 5 years, you sign for Benfica, just as an example, 5-year contract extension. You cannot be transferred. You put a clause in there that they are untransferable for 5 years. They cannot leave the club for 5 years. The only way they can leave the club within those 5 years is on a loan deal. That's it. They can only be loaned out. And for them, only a maximum of 2 years. This way, imagine a player goes, let's say they're 17, okay? By the time they're 19, kid's a superstar. He's a stud. He's got and no release clause on this contract. That's my idea as well. There's no release clause. So even if a guy's got a $60 million or 60 million euro release clause and a team wants to come in and pay it, they can't just pay 60 million to trigger the clause and he's gone. No release clause. He's untransferable for those 5 years. If your team wants him, they can loan him. So imagine a Man City comes around and wants to loan the kid out. Well, the kid goes to Man City for 2 years. Proves he can play. Now he's got to go back. After 2 years, he's got to go back to Benfica. Well, guess what? How much do you think he's worth now to Man City?
A lot.
A lot more than potentially a $60 million release clause.
Yeah.
Because now he's proven he can play. Right?
No, for sure. I know what you're saying. And you know what? That's a great idea. Anything to hold our talent more. Anything. Even another thing I'd like to is a mandatory percentage that the team owns. There's nothing that bothers me more where they poach our talent. I understand that's how our league, that's how we run, but they poach our talent. They sell that same player a few years later for I don't know, 80 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a percentage of it. I agree. If you produce a player, you grow that player, you should, for the rest of their career, own a percentage. Yep. So even 30%, 40%. Because that will also help the other teams. You know what I mean? Because like a guy like Cristiano Ronaldo, I understand inflation and things were different back then. I totally get that. But he went for $13 million. He went to Real Madrid, $100 million. How many times he got transferred?
Yep.
If we owned a percentage of that player, think about all the money that would come in. That's an example. That would also help.
But I mean, that does happen.
Yeah.
Like it might not be the higher percentages, but that's
sure,
usually
mandatory.
Mandatory. I just don't know if for example, Wolves goes and pays 40 million for Mateus Nunes. They want to own that player. Like if they're taking a big chance. That's why I'm saying. That's why my theory is, yeah, you're not getting that upfront 40 million, but it takes. So as the Portuguese club, you're giving up the potential to make that big splash deal. Okay. But the fact that they could only go on loan for a maximum of 2 years, depending on when in the contract that happens, you get the potential of getting them back. So imagine after 2 years, they go on loan for 2 years to England. They come back after 2 years, a much better player. Now that player can be integrated in Benfica to help them mount a serious challenge in Europe. So now not only did the player just get 2 years of exposure in the EPL, and obviously they're going to be worth a lot more to a team like Man City, but now they can come back to the Portuguese league, help the Portuguese teams in Europe, get that exposure in Europe, and all of a sudden now their value could double, triple. That's kind of what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there has to be a long-term vision. The
sure.
Portuguese clubs have to have the long-term vision of, okay, we're not going to potentially get a 40 million release clause paid, but if we wait the 5 years, this player could potentially help us within 5 years to do really well in Europe, while kind of teasing, a club with a loan deal and potentially, increasing their value double or triple. So yeah, you're not taking that initial 40 million release clause, but you could end up getting 100 million for that player.
Yeah. I'm down for whatever it takes to hold more talent. If that's the case, if it's
Man, it's just, and like I say, I could be totally talking out of my ass here, but I think there needs to be something. The league needs to come together to try and strengthen the talent and try to preserve our treasures, man. These are players that, man, there's some of the best players in the world today came out of the Portuguese league. I think people are finally starting to wake up and realize how much talent is being pumped out of this little country, man. It's unbelievable. It's crazy.
100%.
Anyway, good stuff. Moving on, guys. A big game last week that we kind of missed to bring to you guys was Sporting versus Port. Christian, my condolences, buddy. Didn't go so well for you guys.
Yeah. You know what, though? Yeah, Porto deserved to win. Yeah, it was a tough game. But I don't believe, actually, most people don't believe that score did it justice. It was a much closer game than 3-0. Actually, if you look at if you don't believe me, take time, go check out the highlights. Unfortunately, we couldn't pull it up today. We outchanced them. We had a lot of really good chances. We missed breakaways. We hit the post. Buddy, Diego Costa says a lot. 3-0, and man of the match was Diego Costa. He made, I'm sure you've seen, some unreal saves, and he's solidifying himself as our number one goalie. And you know what? I know he's a Porto fan, but a Porto player. I actually like that player. I think he's a really good player. So yeah, we lost. You could say, yeah, we deserved to lose, but I think it was definitely a much closer game than the scoreline says, which I could hang my hat on. Because even when we were down 2-0, Isuaku had a breakaway, another big fucking save by
what's his name?
Fatasu Isuaku. I love saying it. Anyways, so a horrible game by Adan. He was involved in all 3 goals, but he's allowed to have a horrible game.
I think you could agree. Adan has some competition in Pedro Porro, man.
Oh yeah, Pedro Porro, man. That
save of the match right there, man.
That was flash in the pan, 2.0. But yeah, we lost 3-0. The score does not do it justice. Again, I'll emphasize that it was definitely a much closer game. That's why it's so important to finish your chances, man. And I think when we won the league a few years back, probably a lot of people don't remember, but I remember that like it was yesterday. We were super efficient. There was times where we get pressed, we would go up, we wouldn't get too many chances. We'd get one at one time and we'll score. That we were lacking that this year, and definitely against the Porto game.
Yeah.
So yeah, we lost 3-0. Well deserved by Porto, but we need to start finishing.
So Ivan Nielsen, Uribe, and Galeno getting on the score sheet for Porto.
2 penalties. There were penalties. That's the Porto way.
Yeah.
But they were penalties.
They were penalties.
They were penalties.
They were penalties. You can't.
Pedro Porro, I don't know. But no, I'm joking.
Yeah, that was an iffy. Yeah, it was an iffy call. Man, congrats to Port. They're showing why they were champions last year, man.
I want to jump in and say one more thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't, believe it or not, and this is not to throw anybody off. I wasn't as pressed as Porto as I thought they'd be. You could tell they're not as strong as last year. Yes, they're a winning team. Yes, they're Maduro. Yes, they have a great dressing room. Yes, they have great players. Yes, they deserve to win. But they're not as good as last year. They didn't impress me as much as you think.
Oh, for sure, man. They lost some key pieces to that midfield.
Yeah.
Vitinha and Fábio Vieira were, man, there's 2 very, very good midfielders that Port lost. So, it's definitely not the same Porto team, but
they're beatable, man.
They are beatable, 100%. And I mean, we also can't deny the fact that Mateus Nunes leaving the week before
4 days, man. What kind of bullshit is that? Like, being serious, like, what kind of direction?
I was waiting for you to dive in there.
Who sells their top player 4 days before one of the biggest games of the year? 4 days. And this is the thing. Ruben Amorim has been going off on the Liga, and rightfully so. They had a plan, and you can listen to yourselves if you don't believe me. Listen to the press conferences. Supposedly, what he said, they wanted to cut the fat around the team. They can't have the luxury of holding like a team like Porto or Benfica, where they can, have 2 or 3 starting teams with the amount of depth they have. We don't have that. So what Ruben Amorim was told, and they had a plan, and they sat down and talked with, was we're going to sell off players like Tabata. We're going to sell off players like Palhinha. We're going to sell off these players to hold the base. And what he was saying the base was players like Mateus Nunes, Inácio, Pot, and Mateus Nunes, Inácio, Pot, and Coates. That's the base. He could not afford to sell the base. So he cut the fat around. Did you know a crazy stat I heard yesterday? We lost 75% of our midfield this year. 75%. We lost Palhinha. We lost Tabata. We lost Bragança. We lost...
Bragança's still there, no?
No, he got hurt. He's out for 6-7 months. So we lost 75% of our midfielders. You're going to go and sell Mateus Nunes 4 days before the Clásico. It's going to shake up the locker room. Now, instead of concentrating on the game, you're concentrating on this thing and this fucking bullshit. It was an epic fail on the Vida. And, Ruben Amorim said all the right things, saying it didn't affect the game. I'm not saying Mateus Nunes we would have won the game. It's not that. The point is, all this controversy, instead of concentrating on the game, concentrating all these things, now our locker room is, rattled up. And, yeah, that could be a lot of the reason why this result happened.
Well, I think you're underestimating a little bit. I do think losing Mateus Nunes for you guys is a massive loss. I don't think that's an understatement. Like that is a huge loss for you guys. Sporting's meio campo estava morto. Estava morto. That Ugarte estava completamente desgastado. I don't know how the hell that guy lasted as long as he did in the midfield, man.
The thing that people got to realize too.
Não havia ligação. And that's what Mateus Nunes brought for you guys.
Oh, yeah, he's an engine. But the thing that people don't realize is we only play with 2 midfielders. So if we have a lapse in our midfield,
100%.
We need workhorses. We need players like Mateus Nunes.
Well, dude, I remember watching the game, and I think Coates ended up having the ball at the back. And houve uma jogada that the ball came back to the central, and both Ugarte and what's the
Morita.
Morita, they were stuck in a play on the side of the field, and Coates has the ball, but I looked, I said, olha para o meio campo, estava vazio, nothing, no options in the midfield for Coates to play a ball to. Yeah. Nothing, zero. And both the guys were so tired that they weren't even running to get back into position. They were kind of trudging along to get back, and finally Morita ended up coming kind of back to try to give an option. Coates had the ball forward, but man, that was a huge loss for Sporting, man. That midfield was dead.
The timing, the player, everything was just the worst possible time. Like, at least if it was beginning of the year, you have time to prep, get guys like Alexander Polos, get these guys coming in so you can integrate in the team, not 4 days before.
Well,
now you're going to band-aid a team together.
And the problem, too, is you were talking about them putting Pot into the midfield. Man, you can't put Pot into the midfield because you guys don't have a fucking striker. And Pot's the only one putting the ball in the back of the net for you guys. So you can't fucking afford to drop him into the midfield.
A statistic I heard, don't quote me on this 100%, but it was upwards of 60 to 80% of the goals that came from Sporting last year was through Sarabia and Pot.
You know what that tells me? You guys need Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yes. Who doesn't?
Speaking of Ronaldo, guys, let's jump into the Ronaldo saga. The novella continues. Cristiano Ronaldo coming out, making this statement. Cidadão can pull that up so we can have a look at his tweet. They know the truth. When they interview in a couple weeks, the media is telling lies. I have a notebook in the last few months of the 100 news I made, and only 5 were right. Imagine how it is.
You got to emphasize the S's, man. I'm sorry, man.
Stick with that tip.
Buddy,
Christian,
do you ever watch The Office? I know Steer Down watches The Office. There's an episode where the temp, he's gonna move up. Actually, I think he dropped it into me, and he had a notebook of anything that anybody said bad about him, and he put that in his little notebook. And I think that's what Ronaldo's doing right now.
what are your thoughts, man? Where's he going? What's happening?
My thoughts, honestly, there's a lot of bullshit going on in the background. Some of it's real, obviously, but a lot of it's just Ronaldo. He has the most followers in the world. He has more followers on his Instagram than all the Premier Leagues and championship teams combined. So when you say Ronaldo, you dropped his name, you're going to get fucking, you're going to get clout. You're going to get people talking. Sure, does he want to be there? But do you want to be there right now? I know they won today and they won last game, but after those first 2 games, they're in shambles, man. He is 37 years old. I'm not defending him. I think the way he's going about things is wrong. Okay, I'm going to first say that. But you also got to remember, Cristiano Ronaldo's 37 years old. How many years does he have left? 1, 2 of high caliber football. You're going to want to waste your time in a rebuild. You know what I mean? So I get both sides. I just don't agree with how he's doing it. What I think is going to happen, I think he's going to stay at United. I can't see him going to Sporting right now. Nor can we afford him. I'd love to have him there, of course.
So the teams being linked with Ronaldo currently are Borussia Dortmund, Sporting, and most recently there was a swap deal with Napoli that include Osimhen. Osimhen? Osimhen.
Oh, Seaman.
How the fuck do you pronounce it? No, eh? Osimhen?
Okay.
You know who he is.
Yeah.
He's good. There was a swap deal kind of proposed. His agent came out this week and put that news to bed, basically saying that that deal was not happening. Osimhen was a player for Napoli. He's not going anywhere. So it continues to kind of be Sporting or Dortmund, or he stays at United.
But I think it's written in the stars for him to come to Sporting. I don't think it's going to happen. But, man, he's loved there. They have a whole academy after him. We're in the Champions League.
You know what, dude?
We need a striker, like, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not? Why not try it, man? Buddy, this is the thing. I get money is a big thing, okay? I get that he makes $25 million a year. But he's a billionaire. A billionaire. He doesn't need more nyetba. He has money coming. One post on fucking Instagram, he gets millions of dollars. I don't think money is the issue with this guy. I think at this point, he wants to create a legacy. You want to talk about a legacy? How about going back? And again, I'm going to try to put my bias aside, but going back to the team that formed you and winning a league with them or doing something. For me, you're going to be more remembered. Obviously, he's in a different category. He's Cristiano Ronaldo, but doing things like that is big on your legacy.
Yeah.
So why not try it, man? His mom is a diehard fan. She watches every single game. I mean, I think it's written in the stars. It's either United for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now that all the other teams are out, it's either United or Sporting. So either you stay there or you go to Sporting. Imagine him going to Napoli. Like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
What are you doing? That's what I see.
I think this is where, for me, Ronaldo's personality, his ego, really just pisses me off. And I end up losing so much fucking respect for him. You know what? There's a saying, you either live long enough to be the hero. No, how's the saying go? I fucked it up, didn't I, Adam? You either die the hero or you live long enough to be the villain. There we go.
Thanks, Ronaldo. Thanks for that was his first little snippet into the podcast. Good job, buddy. You killed it.
And it's so true, dude.
You know what?
To me, man, if you're gonna do things, you're 37 years old, buddy. You're not 30 years old anymore. You're not 32 years old anymore. You're not 33 years old anymore. You don't have the same impact as you used to have. You have to realize that teams are not going to go out and spend 25 million euros on your salary anymore. You have to realize that you're no longer the focal point of teams. There has to come a realization where he has to realize he's stepping into a different phase in his career, and he has to start being willing to make some sacrifices.
100%. But you know what? And I agree with you. I'm not cutting down what you're saying. But to be fair to him, if I were playing devil's advocate, he was the top goal scorer for United last year. He had a great season last year. Given to the stat, he was nominated. Believe it or not, he was nominated for Ballon d'Or on the shittiest Man United team ever, at least since the 30s. So I get what you're saying, and you're 100% valid. And I do think 25 million a season for him is a lot, even though he brings in a lot of revenue. If you have a name like Ronaldo, but yeah, he has that to stand on. He could come back and be like, "Yeah, man, but I was a top goal scorer. I was your top goal scorer in the Champions League. You guys were absolute shit. If it was not for me, you'd be 8th or 9th." I mean, you can argue that they got weaker playing for him. You can argue that, but that's what he can stand on.
So you brought up some good points. He's proven he can still score. He's proven he can still be a top player. We know he attracts eyeballs, and eyeballs means money. So why does no one want him?
I think, man, this is the thing. First of all, it's late in the season. If this happened that he wanted out, no, I'm not saying that's the main reason. I'm saying there's a lot of there's no one answer. There's no like one thing, in my opinion, that's what it is. I think it's a layer of things. I think it's his age. I think it's his salary. I think that it's really late on the year. Teams like to build their teams early on so they have time to train with them, to go over tactics. It's hard to bring in a $25 million player at 37 years old with all this controversy behind him late in the season. Now it's a mixture of things, and they're probably looking at the shitstorm that's being pulled up. They probably don't want that. There's so many variables, man. But man, nobody can deny, even at 37 years old, what he can bring to a team. Yes, you might have to play with him, right? And I get it. But some teams are built like that. Some teams need it. Actually, Sporting is one of those teams. They like if you look at against Rio Ave, there was 12 crosses crossed in by Nuno Santos. 12. 0 headers, 0 preview on the end of it. Player like Ronaldo, that'd be a team for him. But now these, like if you're going to play in the Prem, you're going to press. It's high work rate. Maybe a team, well, look at him like, man, he's 37-year-old. I'll probably get 1 or 2 years out of him. Why am I going to invest $50 million for 2 seasons? I'm not going to grow my team. I'm not investing. It's a now. It's a win now. And a lot of teams are not there right now. But that's the way I see it.
I think he is really, really showing exactly why these teams do not want him. Because if he's willing to do this to a United, look at what he's done even to the dressing room, man. I mean, you think you're so good that you're above going with the team during preseason. Now, all of a sudden, you're trying to come back in what you think just because you're Cristiano Ronaldo, you need to be in the starting 11. The guy is out of shape. You see it. You saw it in the couple games he's played. Not only is he 37, but he didn't go through preseason training. He was too busy working out in his quackish. God knows where he was. Taking fucking selfies. Like, this is where, for me, he starts to just lose credibility, man. And I hate to see it because I love what he represents for Portugal. We've never had this. I mean, he's arguably the greatest player to ever play the game. And I just feel like he doesn't need to do this shit. He needs to be a little bit more classy with how he handles himself, man. Yeah. And he needs to fucking give that ego a rest a little bit. And he needs to do things. If he's so concerned about legacy, there's certain things that he could be doing to make himself look even greater. Like you were saying, what a better story than to say, hey, you know what? And here's the thing, man. Make a fucking decision. Like, he's been sitting on the sidelines waiting for some big team because he's Cristiano Ronaldo to come in and save him from United. You know what? Sit down and make a fucking decision. you know what? I'm going to go to Sporting. I'm going to agree to whatever. Jorge Mendes, work it out. Work it out with Sporting. Jorge Mendes, if there's one thing he can do business-wise, he can work out a contract and they can work around his salary. If he had to take a cut, if whatever. But legacy-wise, you know what? Sporting's in the Champions League. What a better time.
Good group, too.
What a better time for me to go back to my roots, go back to the team my mother loves, that I love.
Maybe they'll ground him too.
In a time where they need a position like me, I can be the focal point of the team. I can still go and score 30 goals in a league. I can still perform at the top of my game in all of the major European competitions. I can still show that I'm doing it. There's not a massive difference between, minus PSG, but between the Portuguese league and the French league, there isn't a really huge difference there. No. Take PSG out of the equation.
You can even argue German too.
Messi's doing it in France, a lot younger than Ronaldo. Like, I just wish that Ronaldo would have just made that decision and just said, but he didn't because of his fucking ego, and that's what drives me crazy about him. Man.
So this is the thing. So ego. Actually, me and Stuart Adam, we talked about ego last week. Ego is a big thing. So, but I think there's good parts to an ego and bad parts to ego. So the reason why, in my opinion, that could be completely up to lunch, that he is the player he is and achieved what the things he achieved is that selfishness that I am the best. You want me. I'm the greatest thing ever. Every team should want me. Of course, we're seeing the toxic trait about this. But I think that ego, believe it or not, in my head, is what carried him to the heights he's at, whether it's right or wrong. Because you have to be the greatest athlete. Like, I want to give you an example. Like, look at Muhammad Ali. He would go before the fight and he'd be like, I'm the greatest ever. I'm going to beat you in the second round. Nobody can touch me. I'm the God. I'm this. To be at that level, you have to have this sick. You have to be sick in the head to wake up every single day at 4 a.m, sauna, ice bath, workout, run, stay 4 or 5 hours after training. You have to have that ego to be there. But not again, like now he's 37. He probably has to tweak that thing right now, but it's really hard, man. It's really hard. And yeah, like I said, we're seeing the toxic part of it right now.
Yeah, I think he just needs to make a decision. Shit or get off the pot. If you're gonna go to Sporting, see now. Him going to Sporting doesn't have the same
flash,
the same romanticism, whatever you want to call it, as had he just made that decision straight out and said, you know what, I'm gonna, even if it was a loan deal, even if they would have worked out a loan deal for a year, say, you know what, come out. See what pisses me off about what he did. That statement that we showed that he made on social media. You know, you're so pissed off at media, and don't get me wrong, I know media can be nasty and you know they go and drum up these stories, but if you can't stand the fact that the media can't get it right with regards to your future, then make a fucking statement. Come out and say, hey guys, listen, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. You can't get mad at the media for trying to figure out what you're doing. You're the biggest athlete in the world, and nobody knows what the fuck you're doing because you're at home fucking juggling the ball in your cuecas when the rest of your team is playing halfway across the world. So you can't sit there and be mad about the media trying to figure out what the fuck you're doing by putting out different potentials, trying to reach out to all of their sources to figure out what the hell you're doing. So either shut the fuck up about it or come out and make a statement. Don't sit there and say, I've got this notebook with 100 stories. Não tens mais nada que fazer, caralho. Seriously?
You know what? Speaking of media, did you see what he did to Jamie Carragher?
I did. Yeah.
I thought, you know what? Ronaldo is who he is, and I agree with a lot of things that you said, but that was I actually like that move. Because Jamie Carragher, if you ever watch his like spiels, he shits on Ronaldo for everything. Talks up Messi, shits on Ronaldo since day one. So he went and shook, I believe it was Roy Keane's and Neville's hand, said, what's up? Jamie Carragher was in the middle. He went to reach his hand out, and Ronaldo completely shunned him. And you know what? Good for him, man. I thought that was a cool move.
He'd do the same to me. Moving on.
Hey, sometimes the best things to do is to be quiet. That's Ronaldo.
Well, but that's just it. Take his own fucking advice.
Yeah.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
Either shut the fuck up about the media or put out a statement. Like, don't get mad. Don't be pissed off at the media. Dude, you are a billionaire. Why? Because of the media. You are a billionaire because your name is as valuable as it is.
Yeah.
If you weren't this big of a deal, you wouldn't be who you are. So if you're okay with that and you're okay making the money because you get all the eyeballs, then either come out and make a statement so you can clarify what the hell you're doing, or just shut the fuck up about it.
You know what? Again, this might not have nothing to do with it, but he did just lose a child not too long ago. That could be weighing on his psyche. Some people that they react pretty bad. They don't know how to deal with grief. I think
that's not what's going on, Christian.
I know, but he seems a little bit different, man. Like a little bit.
He can be different, but that's not what's going on. He's holding out. We all know why he's holding out. He's holding out because he wants to play for a big club that's going to be in the Champions League. That is what is happening. He does not want to be stuck at United for another year in his career at 37 years old, not being able to compete in the Champions League. That is it.
He has 1 year left on his contract, so he sees it as a waste of a year.
He sees it as a waste of a year, and he sees how difficult it is year after year to continue performing and competing at this top level. And he sees, so I don't disagree with it, man. I don't disagree that he wants to leave United, but make a fucking decision. If it's going to be a legacy move, sit down and make a decision. If it's going back to Sporting, tell Jorge Mendes, this is what I want to do. You've got publicists, make it fancy. Get my mom with a Sporting jersey, showing me up to or taking me to the stadium, make it look amazing. If it's a legacy move, make the fucking decision. Sit down, get Jorge Mendes at the table with whoever needs to be at the table with the Sporting Direção and make it happen. And put it to bed so you can start playing. The guy could have already bagged 6 goals in the Portuguese league.
Yeah.
Just make a decision, man.
I agree. I can agree with that.
Anyway, we'll keep you guys posted as it moves along. The other news we're gonna kind of mention, guys, that we missed was the big news. We talked a little bit about it earlier already. Matheus Nunes making the big splash to Wolves, 40 million. The Portuguese contingent, only growing at Wolves. What did you think, man?
It was weird to see him in a Wolves jersey. He had an intro video on the Wolves website. I believe the day before the Sporting Porto.
This is it here, yeah. Ruben Neves coming and shaking his hand. I love that, man. I think that's the future of the Portuguese midfield right there.
I love Matheus Nunes. I have a special soft spot for him because I know how humble he is. He was working at the Padaria 5 years ago, man. He was fucking handing out pop 6 5 years ago, man. And look where he's grown now. He's even the way you handled this was with poise and maturity. I think he's going to be really good. It was really tough to see him go, and what a talent. I think honestly, this is my personal opinion. Right now, Liverpool, besides today, they won 9-0. Mm-hmm. But after the result against Manchester United, they were in dire need of a midfielder. Well,
especially with Thiago Alcantara being injured.
Hurt. They're playing guys like Elliott. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong. He might be something, but...
James Milner is still kicking it. How old is James Milner? Doesn't it feel like he's fucking 50?
Yeah.
I feel like I remember playing with that guy in FIFA 2000.
I know. So I think he could have... I mean, you never know. He could have made a team like Liverpool. He held off.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I think it's the best place for him to go if he was to leave Portugal. We talked obviously earlier about hating to see Portuguese players leaving the league, but I think if he was going to go anywhere, I loved this move, especially because I talked about last week on the podcast that I see the future of the Seleção's midfield being Matheus Nunes and Ruben Neves in the middle. So I think it's perfect for the Seleção, especially in a World Cup year coming up to Qatar. That Neves and Matheus Nunes playing together is only going to benefit the Seleção.
Yeah. Anybody but Danilo and Milan.
anybody but Danilo and William. So I'm really happy. And of course, we got to look at who's really pulling the strings behind
this. Is Ronaldo's my idol. I'm telling you right now, I can vouch for this. This is Mitch's Ronaldo right here. Okay? He loves this man.
I do love this man. He's a very intelligent business person.
Let's get a poster of him on your wall.
Yeah,
I think in your office too. Yeah.
But this is the type of influence that Guess the Foot, which is Jorge Mendes' agency, the kind of influence that they have at the Wolves Club. José Sá, Nelson Semedo, Ruben Neves, João Moutinho, Pedro Neto, Daniel Pudense, Gonçalo Guedes, and now Mateus Nunes joining the lot. 8 players in total under his management, all Portuguese.
Their development is just on point. The Portuguese wolf pack.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's cool to see, man. Honestly, in a league like the EPL, obviously the biggest league in the world, it's great to see so many Portuguese players playing in arguably the best league in the world.
And that's just the guys that are there now. He's brought in so many more players. Even guys like Pedro Gonçalves, people don't know this. He played for Wolves.
That were there, 100%.
Trincão, man. Like, the list goes on and on, man.
Yeah.
It's little Portugal.
It'll be good to see. It'll be good to see. All right, guys, that kind of wraps up our Tuga topics. Moving into Tuga Stars, a lot of really, really good performances around the world by Portuguese players. We'll start off João Palhinha bagging his first goal last week in Fulham's 3-2 win over Brentford. Just adding to the bright start that Marco Silva is having for Fulham this year in the EPL. Really, really good to see. Bernardo Silva coming on for his first start of the year. Finally, I think it's kind of cooled off that Bernardo Silva is not going to be going anywhere this year. So he did make his first start last week against Newcastle. Bagged an assist, bagged a goal. Kind of showed exactly why Pep wants to keep him around.
That's a hell of a player, man. João Palhinha, we could have used that guy against Porto, man. One thing we were talking about, like us being short in the midfield. Palhinha used to fucking clean the whole field, man. He was big. So
and he's starting to show exactly why Marco Silva wanted him at
He's
Fulham.
a big player, man.
He's playing really, really well. He's adapting well to the EPL.
Me and Mitch, when we bring out players here, I know we have our biases, but we know what we're talking about, man. We've been talking about these players for a very long time, and now you can really see these guys' potential playing in the EPL every week.
100%. Moving along, Thiago Diallo yesterday bagged the goal in Lille's bounce back 3 win over Ajaxio.
Bounce back, man. They got spanked, buddy. As Mitch likes to say, I'm going to bring it back. We weren't allowed to say it before, but I want to bring it back. Raped and pillaged. They got raped and pillaged last game.
They did get.
Take your lot, sorry,
buddy.
We were holding it back too much. That's all I have to say.
Thiago Diallo obviously can slot in for the Seleção, I think. Potentially he can play at center back, he can play at right back, he can even play at left back. He's pretty versatile, and that could be somebody we see Fernando Santos look towards the World Cup. He's a very, very versatile defender, and I'm hoping,
thank you for everything you've done, but Font, I don't think he has room anymore, man. With guys like Carmo, Inácio, Jallo, man, I'm sorry,
I think
man.
So too.
It's real here.
So good to see Diallo playing well. Yes. Nuno Tavares scoring again for Marseille since going from Arsenal. He scored twice already at left back.
Marseille, right? They're the enemy now. Just joking.
But interesting to see because he definitely struggled a little bit for Arsenal, especially defensively. I think he slots in a little bit better at Marseille. Like you were saying, they do play 3 at the back, so he plays in that very advanced kind of wing back position, so he can really concentrate on his kind of attacking attributes. So 2 goals already for Marseille, so it'll be interesting to see how his season continues. And yesterday, Beto getting on the score sheet for Udinese in their 2-1 win over Monza. Beto is one of those strikers from Portimonense who went to Serie A playing for Udinese. Good player.
All the big 3 were after him too.
100%. So it'll be interesting to see how his season goes. Good to see him getting on the score sheet. And then picking up some news from today, it was a big day in the EPL. It started off with Bruno Fernandes bagging a goal in the 1-0 win over Southampton. Did you see the goal?
Yes, really nice.
And you
goal,
saw
man.
the celebration.
Those players that played soccer growing up, they know how hard that goal is to score right off the volley, just fucking power to bottom corner. Yeah, and you're giving me the layup for the celebration. Yeah, Bruno Fernandes ran right to the bench, right up to Ronaldo, gave him a hug. Yeah, it was nice.
Interesting, because we talked last week about whether or not Bruno Fernandes still fits into the seleção. And of course, from the first two performances of Bruno Fernandes this season, we were leaning towards a no. But if he keeps going at this pace, he may just get a spot back in Fernandes' good books.
100%. And one thing that's changed since we put out the video, the Bruno out video, he was given the captain armband, and I think Captain Bruno is the best Bruno, man.
Do you think it's also because Ronaldo's not on the field?
No, I don't think they would have gave it to Ronaldo.
No. Do you think he plays better with Ronaldo?
I don't agree with that yet, because up until last week, they only won one. Oh, yeah, last week was the first time they won in 2 years without Cristiano Ronaldo on the field. I just think there's something going on there. His confidence is lower. I think once he was given the captain armband, knowing that this is my team, he's a leader, man. He did it with Sporting. He strives in that captain position, and he's taking it and running with it.
I think he takes a back seat when Ronaldo's on the field. I think he tries too much to play to Ronaldo when Ronaldo's on the field. Ronaldo's his idol, man. And I think when he's on the field, he can't be the great leader, that player who takes the team by the scruff of the neck and leads. He himself decides when Ronaldo's on the field, I have to take a back seat.
I mean, I won't vouch for that. I won't agree with that. But everybody's allowed.
Proof's in the pudding, man.
Man, they won once without him. He had many games last season where he played without Cristiano Ronaldo, and he was shambles.
But he does it. It's the same thing in the Seleção, man.
Yeah.
It's very, very rarely do we see Bruno Fernandes have a typical Bruno Fernandes game on the top of his game with Ronaldo on the field.
I think a lot of it's tactics, how they run their tactics. But we can go into this.
We'll see how the season kind of progresses. But
don't you talk about Ronaldo anymore, right?
Also today, Bernardo Silva, we talked to him. We talked about him getting a goal and assist last week against Newcastle. He scored again. The first goal for Man City today against the Crystal Palace.
What's the term we're going to use for the 9-0?
Spanking? I don't know.
Okay, we can't use that word anymore.
Absolute spanking. Liverpool. 9-0 thrashing of Bournemouth today.
No loop.
Yeah, 100%. But Fábio Carvalho, the really young, exciting Portuguese talent, this kid, I am really pumped to see this kid starting to come into his own in the EPL. Scored his first goal for Liverpool today.
And you know what? He had the opportunity. I've been hearing about this guy for a long time. He had the opportunity to sign with England, and there was a big things going on saying that they were going to snag him, but he chose Portugal, man, and luckily.
He was born in Portugal. He spent few years in Portugal and then moved to England as a kid. So he lived in England, so he technically qualified for English citizenship, but he did choose Portugal.
I want to get too ahead of myself, but Portugal keeps pumping out talent like this, man. I think it's only a matter of time before we have a World Cup. You know what I mean? The amount of talent we got, man, we can't even. There's like 4 or 5 players for each position. Like this is another guy adding on. Like our biggest issue now is how do we, what's our starting 11, man? Who do we play? Where do we slot these players?
100%. It's going to be interesting. All right, guys, we're just about wrapped up. We're just going to kind of run through the Liga fixtures for this week to keep you guys posted. Benfica right now beating Boavista 1-0. Morato getting the goal for Benfica. Hopefully they can keep that going on. Actually, did they just score? Did Diogo Gonçalves just score? No. In other action here, yesterday we saw Estoril beating Pasto Ferreira 3-0 today. Portimonense this morning beat Marítimo 1-0. As we mentioned,
They're looking pretty good this year, man.
Portimonense, that's 3 wins and a loss this year for Portimonense. So good start to the Algarvios. Sporting taking on Chaves later today at 1:30 Mountain Time.
Need a big game.
Sporting needs to bounce back from the 3-0 loss against Porto. Tomorrow, Famalicão taking on Santa Clara. Aroca taking on Braga. Rio Ave taking on Porto. And then our Monday action sees Vitória de Guimarães against Casa Pia. Vizela against Gil Vicente. And then on Tuesday, Benfica will be making up because they had a bye last weekend because of the Dinamo Kiev game. Benfica will be taking on Pasto Ferreira on Tuesday to make up for their bye. So that is the action that we'll see this weekend in Liga Portugal. So busy week, man. Lots happening, man.
Travis, and man, don't forget, man, a couple more months, World Cup.
Yeah, it's coming
gonna be
fast.
An amazing year, man.
It's coming fast.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will come to you guys again next week with lots more to cover. So, vamos lá, cara. All right, guys. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the ball.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You guys are what make this podcast tick. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Ciao, guys.
Much love.
Força.
Força.